Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1. Standing atop the high sand dunes, watching the blood-red sunset distorted and kneaded by the scorching sand on the horizon, the silhouette of the village below cast long, large shadows, accompanied by clumps of tumbleweeds swaying in the wind. Everything seemed inexplicably desolate yet magnificent. Sigh. Jing Hang let out a long sigh. It's beautiful, isn't it? A question came from behind. Jing Hang didn't turn his head, and quickly knelt down. Yes, Lord Kazekage, breathtakingly beautiful. That's right, Jing Hang is the protagonist of this book, an 80s-born community grid worker who should have been fighting on the front lines of the epidemic. He doesn't have many hobbies, except for reading comics. One day, he was busy with the community's epidemic prevention work all night and couldn't fall asleep when he got back to his dormitory. So he opened his laptop to rewatch Naruto. He got sleepy while reading and woke up to find himself in the world of Naruto, or more accurately, the world of Kazekage. The endless yellow sand, the barren land. This is practically the Sand Village. And he himself is just a war orphan from the First Shinobi World War. However, by a stroke of luck, Jing Hang gradually discovered that he was the Third Kazekage, known as the strongest Kazekage in history. He was also the most unlucky Kazekage, appearing as a puppet in the hands of Sasori of the Red Sand from the very beginning. As a transmigrator, he naturally could not accept such a tragic fate. Possessing the magnet release bloodline limit and the iron sand secret technique, he distinguished himself at the Ninja Academy from a young age thanks to his deep understanding of the manga and his own unremitting efforts. After graduation, he led his squad and completed countless missions, large and small. At the young age of 16, he was promoted to Jonin and gained the favor of the second Kazekage, Shaman, who promoted him to bodyguard. Over the years, he fought in all directions, not only earning the nickname Blue Sandstorm, the third Hokage with blue hair, in the ninja world, but also being regarded by the second Hokage and several elders of the village as the successor to the Kazekage. Do you still think we shouldn't go to the Land of Rain? The second Kazekage asked. Yes, Lord Kazekage. Why? Is it because of that poison-wielding kid named Hanzo the Salamander? Elder Cho can handle a mere salamander. My concern is that if the battle becomes too close, other major powers will inevitably intervene, and neither Konoha nor Iwagakure will allow a powerful enemy to appear by their side. Enough! Shaman interrupted sternly. Do you think I don't know the risks of this war? Take a good look. He then pointed to the village at his feet. Water shortage. Poverty. Hunger. This is the kind of hardship we've endured. Do we want our children to suffer the same? If we don't fight, where will we find a place to live? If we don't fight, how will we develop our village? You're short-sighted. You've truly disappointed me. The second-generation shaman was agitated, the dragon tattoo on his face appearing even more ferocious. Jing Hang remained kneeling on the ground with his head down, saying nothing more. Since you don't want to fight this war, then don't go. Go to the abyss and watch over that little monk, Fenfu. When Jing Hang looked up again, the second generation had vanished. The next day, the second Kazekage personally led Elder Cho and a group of elite jonin on an expedition to the Land of Rain. Elder Ebizo managed the village affairs, while Jing Hang, an elite jonin considered his successor, was demoted to guard the prison known as the Abyss and to guard Bunpyaku, the Jinchuriki of the one-tailed Shikaku. Jing Hang, who has thoroughly studied Naruto and been active on various Naruto forums for a long time, naturally knew that the upcoming war was the Second Shinobi World War. This was about 20 years after the First Shinobi World War, when the economic gap between countries widened and militaristic factions rose in various countries under the pretext of increasing fairness and privilege. The Second Shinobi World War began with the invasion of Omegakure by the Sand Village, a war waged to expand territory through force. Afterwards, the 5 great nations fought amongst themselves around the land of rain, resulting in a chaotic and protracted conflict. Ultimately, the Leaf Village, with its deep-rooted resources and fertile lands, emerged victorious. The Sand Village lost a large number of elite ninjas in this war, and then suffered the unexpected deaths of the 3rd and 4th Hokage. From then on, it almost became a second-rate player on the stage of the 5 great nations. Although it joined forces with Orochimaru to launch the Konoha collapse plan, it gained almost nothing except killing an old and frail Hiruzen Sarutobi. By the time of the 5th Kazekage, Gaara, they had become Konoha's subordinates. Therefore, the conclusion that the decline of Tsunagakure stemmed from the war launched by the 2nd Kazekage is indisputable. Although Jing Hang is now the crown prince of Tsunagakure, he naturally wants to cool down and put a stop to the village's impending collapse. However, he is not yet the leader. His repeated advice to the 2nd Hokage at the War Council meetings has only provoked the 2nd Hokage's dissatisfaction, who was already inclined towards the martial arts faction. As a result, he was demoted to guarding the Jinchuriki. From now on, he can only take things one step at a time. The abyss is actually a semi-enclosed prison converted from a deep valley. It is a large space, but only holds one prisoner. It is deep, dark, and extremely silent, like the deepest hell, suffocating to the soul. Sigh, boss, why did you have to argue with Lord Kazekage for no reason? Now look what's happened, not only can Yekeng and I not go to the battlefield, but we also have to come with you to guard this wretched place. Luo Sha said irritably. Shut up. If the boss makes a mistake, just do as he says. Yekarim manipulated his scorching release fireball to act as a light bulb illuminating the way ahead. As an elite jonin, Jing Hang naturally had his own ninja squad. Before Tsunade proposed the theory that equipping a combat squad with a medical ninja could greatly increase the chances of survival, a combat team usually consisted of 3 people. Jing Hang, who had entered the upper echelons of Tsunagakure early on, casually included the future 4th Kazekage, the bitter-faced Raza, and the future elite Jonin, Pakura, who was more resentful than Doi but had extremely strong combat power, in his squad. This was almost the strongest squad in Tsunagakure, but whether it was intentional or not by the 2nd Kazekage, due to Jing Hang's direct remonstrance, the entire squad was banished to the abyss. Luo Sha completely lacked the taciturnity and composure of the future 4th Kazekage. He acted like a nagging, submissive wife, complaining incessantly. Yekeng, on the other hand, was a loyal fan of Jing Hang, as if whatever her captain said was right. The abyss was deep and winding. After walking for an unknown amount of time, I finally sensed a faint light ahead, and a slender shadow was stretched even longer. Master Fenfu, it's time to eat. Jing Hang respectfully handed the food box into the cell. A middle-aged monk slightly opened his eyes, recognized the person who had come, and smiled slightly. Thank you for your trouble, benefactor Jing Hang. Fenfu clasped his hands together and bowed to Jing Hang. As the village's strategic weapon and successor, Jing Hang and Fenfu naturally knew each other. Not only did they know each other, but they were also very familiar with each other. Jing Hang, who knew the secrets of the tailed beasts, would often come to chat with Fenfu because he knew that this monk was no ordinary person. He could almost be said to be the first perfect Jinchuriki in history after the Sage of Six Paths. His clear mind made even the eccentric and tyrannical Shikaku praise his qualities as being very similar to those of the Sage of Six Paths. Unfortunately, the village viewed the tailed beast as a monstrous threat and only dared to imprison it in the abyss, without conducting any in-depth research or utilizing it. I apologize for troubling you, benefactor, not because you went to the trouble of carrying my food, but because I respect your bold advice to the 2nd generation to send troops to the land of rain. Fenfu opened the food box in front of him and began to eat slowly. It's a pity that Lord Feng Ying didn't heed my advice and insisted on sending troops. The vanguard of his army is probably already at the border of the Rain Kingdom. Alas, a great war is inevitable. Jing Hang couldn't help but sigh. Although the two had different goals, one for the country and the other for the common people, they both wanted to avoid this war. You have done your best, and your heart is pure, there is no need for unease. It is pitiful that the world is once again filled with suffering and death. I will chant sutras for the deceased shortly. Jing Hang responded, and looked at Fen Fu's face in the lamplight. He saw that Fen Fu's thin, long face had two huge dark circles under his eyes. Master, how long has it been since you slept? It's been 55 days. Oh dear, my apologies, my apologies. How about I take the master out to sleep for a while now? Fen Fu immediately smiled, his eyes narrowing. He put his hands together in prayer. Then I will trouble you, benefactor. Chapter 2. I'm finally out. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Amidst the swirling yellow sand, a gigantic raccoon covered in cursed patterns on its body raised its two sharp claws and howled towards the sky. Yes, yes, you're out. A calm voice came from the side. Who is it? Shikaku looked warily toward the source of the voice. It's you. Shikaku narrowed his copper coin-like pupils and saw Jing Hang standing on the sand dune not far away. Yes, it's me. I'm going to kill you. Come on, you stinky cat. Jing Hang, utterly unafraid, pulled out a scroll, and with a bang, a large amount of black iron sand flowed out, instantly forming an iron barrier in front of him. Ignoring the situation before him, Shikaku roared madly, Wind release, sky bullet. Wind release, sand scattering bullet. Countless massive wind balls and sand bullets, condensed from the high density of tailed beast chakra, rained down on Jing Hang's iron-clad defense, producing a teeth-grinding scraping sound. Shikaku relentlessly unleashed its attacks, as if it wanted to engulf the little man before it with endless waves of attack. On a sand dune not far away, Yukeng and Lashi were brewing tea in a makeshift tent. How long has it been? Yukeng asked with concern, looking in the direction of the fight. It's early, it's early. It's only been a little over 2 hours. Let the monk sleep a little longer. Lashi didn't even look up, busy with the tea set in his hands. Hey, look, Shikaku has stopped. Is he about to unleash a tailed beast ball? Yekura pointed in the direction of the fight. Really? Hehe, the most exciting part is coming. Lashi quickly handed Yukeng a cup of tea, picked up a small stool, and sat down in front. Shikaku opened its massive mouth, and a huge amount of chakra was rapidly gathering and condensing, forming a huge black chakra ball. Sensing the attack had stopped, Jing Hang quickly withdrew the iron sand barrier, swiftly pulled out 2 scrolls, released more black iron sand, and then rapidly formed hand seals with both hands. Magnetic release, Gundam technique. With a roar from Jing Hang, countless iron filings rapidly piled up and assembled, soon transforming into a steel giant about the size of Shikaku. The giant was clad in armor, wielding 2 maces, resembling a door god, exuding a murderous aura and awe-inspiring presence. Awesome! Yekura and Raza's eyes sparkled. In an instant, the tailed beast ball was upon them. The steel giant's twin maces crossed to withstand the constantly tumbling tailed beast ball, sparks flying everywhere. Jing Hang, standing on the head of the steel giant, let out a low shout, raised his twin maces, and the tailed beast ball flew straight into the sky, exploding in midair and completely clearing away the previously dense clouds. The Iron Man took 2 quick steps and swung his iron mace at Shikaku. Shikaku instinctively raised its right claw to block, but iron is heavier than sand, and in an instant, Shikaku's right arm was shattered by the mace. Before Shikaku could recover, the Iron Man swung his left mace again, and in a moment, another piece of Shikaku's kidney was missing. Serves you right for being so disobedient. Jing Hang muttered, but his hands didn't slow down at all. His iron maces lashed out from both sides, striking Shikaku like a spinning top. Although these attacks didn't cause any real damage to Shikaku, the relentless assault prevented it from regaining its form, gradually turning it into a pile of mud under the mace's onslaught. And with each strike from the Iron Man, Shikako let out a piercing scream, clearly in real pain. What was Big Brother thinking? How could he come up with such a cool ninjutsu? Yekura's eyes were still full of stars. It's said that my elder brother created this technique by referencing Hashirama's would release and the Uchiha clan's Susanoo. But only someone with my elder brother's monstrous chakra reserves could sustain Iron Man for so long. It's been 3 hours already and Iron Man hasn't dissipated. Amazing! Raza said, slowly sipping his tea. By the way, how's your preparation for the Golden Man technique coming along? Ye King asked, turning his head. Sigh, don't even mention it. To this day, it's still not even half the size of my older brother, Iron Man. And the gold dust is too heavy and difficult to control, but it's not bad for sealing techniques. Raza sighed deeply. Don't think only the Uchiha clan can pilot Gundams. I'm just as tough as them, Jing Hang muttered to himself. Yes, this is the new ninjutsu Jing Hang developed based on his own bloodline limit, magnet release, iron sand technique, also known as the Gundam technique. In the original work, the third Hokage was already a puppet created by Sasori of the Red Sand when he first appeared. The so-called ninjutsu, magnet release, iron sand technique, was nothing more than manipulating iron sand mixed with poison to form various shapes to stab and smash people. The quintessential Magneto of the ninja world was wasted, turned into an invincible destroyer, a complete waste of his talent. Reborn, Jing Hang would never squander his gifts. He researched various targeted and powerful ninjutsu based on his own characteristics. The Gundam technique is one of them, using magnet release to mold iron sand into battle-ready Iron Men that can constantly change shape. It's truly the best choice for suppressing tailed beasts and fighting against Susanoo. It surpasses even Hashirama's wooden puppet technique. Ever since Jing Hang figured out this technique, he would come to Bunpyaku to practice from time to time. At this time, Bunpyaku was far from the perfect Jinchuriki he would become. In order to fight against the restless Shikako within him, he could only force himself to stay awake and was often exhausted. This was perfect timing. As soon as Jing Hang arrived, Fenfu used the feigned sleep technique to temporarily release Shikako, while Jing Hang used the Gundam technique to fight against it. On one hand, Jing Hang could continuously improve his techniques, and on the other hand, Fenfu could get a great respite. As time went on, the battles became longer and longer, from 2 hours at the beginning to almost a decisive victory now. Jing Hang gradually reached the level of an actor. It's been almost 6.5 hours. The sun is about to set, and it's time for Big Brother to have dinner, Ye King said to Luo Sha. We can't delay eating. Luo Sha took out a firework from his pocket. Squeak bang. As fireworks burst in the sky, Jing Hang flew to the body of Fenfu, who was sleeping in a pile of mud, and flicked the bald man on the head. Ah! Fenfu yawned comfortably and stretched contentedly. He then bowed to Jing Hang again. Thank you for your kindness. No problem, no problem. I'll be here all the time. Master, just call me whenever you feel sleepy. Hehe, you're too kind, benefactor. Shower, he just told me that you're becoming increasingly ruthless, and he simply can't take it anymore. He won't cause any more trouble. If this humble monk gets tired, just release him, he promises not to cause any trouble or harm anyone. Oh, really? But Shikako is always cunning, I'll have to keep an eye on it for a while. You are mistaken, benefactor. As long as one can genuinely accept each other, there is no difference between humans and tailed beasts. It's alright, it'll be good to chat with Shikako. We always end up fighting as soon as we meet, we've never really had a proper conversation. Brother, this is the battle report from the front lines of the Land of Rain. It should be from a week ago. Luo Sha handed over a stack of reports. Any news from Konoha or Iwagakure? Jing Hang took the report and casually asked a question. According to information from the Anbu, under Maki, numerous traces of Iwagakure ninja have been discovered on the border between the Land of Rain and the Land of Earth. The third Hokage of Konoha has suspended mission reception and issued a ninja mobilization order. This is bad. Jing Hang sighed after reading the battle report. The battle between Omegakure and Tsunagakure has reached a stalemate. Due to the frequent rains in the Land of Rain, many of Tsunagakure's ninjutsu are significantly weakened. Fortunately, Cho has neutralized all the poison released by Hanzo the salamander on the battlefield. Cho also discovered that the salamander needs 5 minutes to replenish its poison gas, which is causing Hanzo considerable trouble. Although Tsunagakure holds the advantage in the initial stages of the battle, a quick resolution is impossible. Meanwhile, Iwagakure and Konoha are already stirring, and the situation is developing in an unfavorable direction. Draft a letter to Elder Habazang immediately. Yukeng quickly took out paper and pen to write it down. Given the current grim situation of the war, I would like to offer the following suggestions. First, raise the alert level of Tsunagakure village and increase the number of hidden and mobile sentries. Second, request 50 million taels of war funds from the daimyo of the Land of Wind. Third, all Chunin and Genin who are not participating in the war and are on missions abroad must immediately terminate their missions and purchase food locally as much as possible, transporting it back to Sunakura village in the shortest possible time. The penalty for breach of mission will be handled uniformly by the Mission Reception Office. Fourth, inventory the ninja tools and supplies in the warehouse, and assign a special person to protect the well. Fifth, purchase a batch of ninja tools on credit from the Land of Craftsmen. Brother, I think even if we use all these resources on the front lines, this war is still going to be tough, Luo Sha said to Jing Hang with a bitter face. I'm not doing this for the front lines at all. Jing Hang looked up at the bright moon. We've already lost this war, I'm preparing for the next one. Chapter 3. Big Brother, Lord Kazekage is back. The village has notified you to return immediately. Yukeng said anxiously. Pack your things and get ready to go back to the village. Get ready, it's our turn to go to the battlefield, Jing Hang said, adjusting his combat uniform. The second Kazekage did indeed return, but he returned lying down. The war in the Land of Rain was unpredictable from the start. Just as the Sand Village and the Rain Village were locked in a fierce battle, the Leaf Village made its move. However, the leader of the army was not a veteran like Shimura Danzo or Akimichi Torifu, but a group of new generation ninjas led by Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade. The target was not Tsunagakure, which had launched the invasion, but Omegakure, which had been invaded. Omegakure was suddenly under immense pressure. Hanzo of the Salamander decisively relinquished a large area of territory that was at war with Tsunagakure, and concentrated his forces to turn around and fight against the attacking Konoha. Omegakure and Konoha clashed, and on the battlefield, Hanzo summoned the Salamander Ibuki to release a wide range of poison that caused many Konoha ninja to fall. In the end, only Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru remained on the battlefield, still holding on. Hanzo greatly admired them and thus bestowed upon them the title of Konoha's legendary Sunin. Konoha won a Pyrrhic victory in this battle, but its upper echelons remained unscathed, while Omegakure completely sided with Konoha. Thus, the exhausted Tsunagakure and the subsequent Konoha reinforcements clashed head-on on the land of Omegakure. It's no wonder the second Kazekage misjudged the situation. The damp and rainy Land of Rain was simply unsuitable for the Sand Village ninjas who fought in the desert for extended periods. Instead of pressing their advantage, the Sand Village, now under less pressure, stood by and watched the fight unfold, hoping to reap the benefits. Unexpectedly, the new generation of Konoha's forces were so powerful that even Hanzo of the Salamander, known as a demigod, had to surrender. Meanwhile, Konoha's reinforcements, led by Danzo Shimura, had arrived, forcing the second Kazekage to lead his troops in a fierce battle against a new enemy. Because the war did not meet the strategic expectations of the notoriously stingy daimyo of the Land of Wind, and the requested war funds were not secured, the protracted and stalemate in the war had led to the depletion of logistical supplies and ninja tools. As soon as the battle with Konoha began, they were at a disadvantage. All the poisons that Cho made were countered by Tsunade of Konoha, which made Cho feel very troubled. The second Hokage, Shaman, hoped to turn the tide of the battle with his formidable personal strength, but he didn't expect that Konoha's Shimura Danzo and Uchiha Kagami were equally formidable. Shaman, despite using all his skills, could only manage a stalemate. The Tsunagakure army suffered heavy losses of elite jonin and was forced into a defensive posture, with their lines on the verge of collapse. As the saying goes, prolonged defense inevitably leads to defeat. Finally, the astute Danzo seized the opportunity, concentrating his forces for a full-scale attack on Tsunagakure's defenses, which crumbled instantly. The second Kazekage personally covered the rear, which played right into Danzo's hands. In an instant, multiple elite Konoha jonin surrounded and attacked Shaman. Despite Shaman's superior skills, even a mighty tiger cannot withstand a pack of wolves. Before exhausting his chakra, he launched a desperate attack to take down Uchiha Kagami, but was himself ambushed in the lower back by Danzo's wind release, vacuum ball. Just as Shaman was about to die on the spot, Elder Cho rushed in and activated her trump card, the white secret technique, Chikamatsu 10 Puppet Masters, managing to snatch the dying Shaman back from the brink of death, even at the cost of losing an arm. Unfortunately, Cho had not yet developed a reincarnation technique and could not prolong the Shaman's life. By the time they reached the camp gate, the Shaman was barely breathing. He murmured, "Find Jing Hang," before fainting. Cho had no choice but to lead the remaining troops to retreat to the border of Amsuna while arranging for medical ninjas to escort Shaman back to the village to make arrangements for his funeral. When Jing Hang entered the Wind Shadow Hall, he saw the elders, led by Ebizo, sitting in a circle. Nearly half of the seats were empty, indicating that they had all sacrificed themselves in the war. The second Kazekage was ashen-faced, his lips devoid of any color. It seemed he was holding on by sheer willpower, waiting for Jing Hang. When he saw Jing Hang enter the hall, a different light shone in Shaman's eyes. "Jing Hang, it seems, you were right. I was too impatient." The monk's voice was barely audible. "Lord Kazekage, please stop." "No, I must say it." Shaman suddenly opened his eyes, as if burning the last bit of his energy. Jonin Jing Hang, with foresight, exceptional ninjutsu, youthful vigor, and noble character, should become Kazekage after my death. Does anyone have any objections? Shaman finished speaking in one breath, scanning the entire room. The elders all raised their hands in approval. "Hee, good, good, good." The monk said good 3 times, and then passed away peacefully in the Wind Shadow Hall. The crowd bowed to the body of the monk, and then bowed to Jing Hang. The former was a tribute to the deceased, and the latter was an affirmation of the successor. "What instructions does Lord Kazekage have? How should the funeral be arranged? When will the succession ceremony be held?" Elder Ebizo asked. "Elder Yukyusa, please arrange for someone to collect the second Hokage's body and temporarily store it in the cold storage." Jonin Maki, immediately set up the operations room, and all Jonin will hold an operations meeting in 10 minutes. As for the second Hokage's funeral and succession ceremony, we'll hold them when I return, Jing Hang Deo said. "Warfare meeting, Jing Hang, do you still want to continue fighting?" Ebizo was a little surprised, as he knew that Jing Hang had been the most opposed to this war. "There's nothing I can do, Elder." Jing Hang tightened his wrist guard. "Only if we win the battle can we talk. The current situation is that Lady Cho is leading the remnants of the expeditionary force to deploy defenses in the Night Howling Sands area. The vanguard of Danzo's forces from Konoha has already entered the Land of Wind and is expected to be a day's journey away from Lady Cho." Maki pointed with his baton on the huge sand table. Any further news from Konoha? Jing Hang asked. Yes, according to intelligence from our sources inside Konoha, the Konoha leadership has decided to organize a force to attack our territory from the west, via the land of rivers. When was this news received? 3 days ago. Who is the opposing commander? Konoha's White Fang, Hatake Sakumo. Immediately, the elders erupted in discussion. Konoha's White Fang, infamous for his ferocity, was known for his ruthlessness and cunning. Jing Hang stared intently at the sand table, silently calculating and deducing in his mind. Konoha's move was truly a fatal blow to the heart of Tsunagakure's territory. The second Hokage was killed, and Tsunagakure's main force was tied up on the northern border. Tsunagakure could no longer spare much mobile force to defend the west. According to the timeline of the manga, Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law died in this battle. Suddenly, Jing Hang pointed, I remember the Lashi fortress in the west, we had a group of ninjas stationed there, right? How many? Who was the commander? There was a small group, about 50 people, commanded by the Jonin couple, Akasuna and Kika. Okay, that matches up. Elder Ebizo, how are the war funds we applied for from the daimyo and the supplies we've collected coming along? Jing Hang asked. After our repeated applications, the daimyo of the Land of Wind allocated 15 million taels of silver the day before yesterday. The grain and fodder we have collected are enough to support the current war situation for 3 months. In addition, the ninja tools we purchased on credit from the Land of Craftsmen have arrived, but only half of the required quantity. Moreover, if we cannot settle the payment by the end of this year, they will no longer provide us with ninja tools, Ebizo said helplessly. Damn it! Jing Hang cursed under his breath. There was nothing he could do, the situation was a complete mess, no money, no food, and no manpower. And troubles just kept piling up. Jing Hang rubbed his temples, carefully considering the situation. Although the northern defense line was a defeated force, it was indeed the main force of Tsunagakure. However, they were short of food and pay, and their morale was low. They had now retreated into the Land of Wind. Playing on home turf, if reinforcements can be replenished in time, Danzo shouldn't be able to take them down for a while. The real killer move is Hatake Sakumo's flanking force. It seems I have no choice but to personally go and meet Konoha's White Fang. Order. Everyone stiffened and simultaneously stood at attention. Elder Ebizo, organize the logistics personnel to send the existing funds, provisions, and ninja tools to Lady Chiyo's front lines. Yes. Jonin Raza, excluding those from Abyss Prison, organized all Jonin and Chunin from the village, completed reorganization within 2 days, and departed for the rescue of Raishi Fortress. Yes. Jonin Yekara, prepare 2 days' worth of soldier rations for me, so I can eat them on the road. Hey! Everyone looked at Jing Hang in surprise. There's nothing I can do. Jing Hang shrugged helplessly. According to intelligence analysis, Konoha's Hatake Sakumo is estimated to arrive at Rishoka Fortress by noon tomorrow. Akazugo's small force simply can't hold out. If I set off now and run fast, I should be able to catch up. However, it's too dangerous for you to travel alone. Why don't you set off with the team now? Luo Sha said. Can you outrun me? Jing Hang chuckled and patted Luo Sha's head. Furthermore, most of the remaining Jonin in the village are NBU members, instructors at the Ninja Academy, and security personnel from various government agencies. These people have different combat abilities and ninjutsu, they're all combat-oriented, sensory-oriented, and medical-oriented. If they all went together in a chaotic mess, wouldn't that just be handing Konoha's White Fang a free ride? So we must reorganize them so that we can unleash their fighting power, understand? Jing Hang said, patting Luo Sha's shoulder. Yes, I will certainly not fail in my mission, Luo Sha said, kneeling on one knee. Okay, alright, I'm leaving now. Jing Hang took the water bottle and ration pills that Yekhang handed him. You absolutely must be there 3 days from now, or I'll become the Kazekage with the shortest tenure. Chapter 4. If you were to ask who is the fastest in the world of Naruto, many people would cite the second Hokage Tobirama Senju and the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze, who mastered the Flying Thunder God technique, a seemingly impossible space-time ninjutsu. In fact, people often overlook the fact that the Raikage and Hibiki of all generations, who were protected by lightning armor, were also fast enough to rival the Flying Thunder God technique. In the manga, Killer Bee, who deployed his lightning release armor, once went toe-to-toe with Minato Namikaze, who used the Flying Thunder God technique, in terms of speed. However, the lightning release armor has always been a closely guarded secret of the hidden Cloud Village, and moreover, lightning release requires talent. However, these problems are no problem for Jing Hang, a time traveler. He may not know lightning release, but he knows magnet release. The great physicist Faraday had already explained the relationship between electricity and magnetism very clearly. When a conductor in a closed circuit moves and cuts magnetic field lines, a current is generated in the conductor. This phenomenon is called electromagnetic induction, and the generated current is called induced current. With the theory in place, the rest is simple: form a closed circuit with iron filings, then use other magnetic iron filings to relentlessly cut the magnetic field lines. And just like that, a high-quality replica of the lightning release armor is created. Jing Hang, moving at high speed through the desert, even wore a headscarf and goggles, his blue lightning armor emitting bursts of chimes. He truly streaked across the desert like a trail of sparks and lightning. This lightning release armor is very useful, but it consumes a lot of chakra. It seems I'll need to catch my breath and recover before reaching Lashi Fortress. For ninjas of the same age, Jing Hang's total chakra reserves are undoubtedly terrifying. Ever since graduating from the Ninja Academy, Jing Hang has been constantly training his chakra reserves. He can lack everything else, but he cannot lack chakra. World War II has only just begun, and World War III is still more than a decade away, while World War IV is even further away. Who knows how many more tough battles and fierce fights will be fought? If you don't have enough mana, what's the point of fighting? Only someone like the Third Kazekage, who can fight against thousands single-handedly and last for 3 days and 3 nights, is the true path to victory. Through training, Jing Hang discovered that training chakra was similar to training physical fitness. Only by constantly pushing the limits could one achieve growth. Thus, in the training grounds of Tsunagakure, one could always see a figure with long blue hair tirelessly sweating profusely. This action greatly pleased the second-generation Kazekage, who always liked to gaze at the village from afar. That blue-haired young man is not bad. What's his name? Thus, Jing Hang's name caught the eye of the Sand Village's higher UPS. After Jing Hang completed countless S-rank and A-rank missions and commanded several local armed conflicts on the border to great victories, the Sand Village immediately made the decision to promote Jing Hang to the rank of bodyguard. He can fight and fight, he's not only sensible but also has a sweet tongue, he was a community civil servant in his previous life, so it's basic operation, otherwise he would be getting complaints every day. He has a big picture perspective despite his young age. He's tall and handsome. Indeed, the Kazekage of all time is the most handsome of the 3 generations. Such a young man is definitely worth cultivating. In just a few years, Jing Hang gained the approval of both the martial arts faction and the conservative faction within the Sand Village's upper echelons. He was directly regarded as the crown prince. Even when Jing Hang suggested using the village's nuclear bomb Shikaku as practice, Shaman agreed without batting an eye. Being able to arm wrestle with a tailed beast, his chakra reserves are at least in the top 5, if not the top 3, in the current ninja world. However, driving a high-quality replica of lightning armor across the desert for a day and a night is no less demanding than piloting a Gundam. Such an operation is very chakra-intensive. It seems I'll have to study magic sometime. Mastering it would be like having a cheat code. Where should I learn it? Mount Maiboku? Shikotsu Forest? Rika Cave? Or some other summoning beast's lair? Right, should I sign up for a summoning beast too? Jing Hang thought to himself as he flew. Akagami Kyoki opened the instructions from Tsunagakuer sent by Senjun. The small note contained only 3 short sentences. The second-generation leader died in battle, and Jing Hang succeeded him as the third-generation leader. Konoha's White Fang will invade the Lashi fortress at noon on the 27th. The third generation is about to arrive to provide assistance, please hold fast. The date was the night of the 25th. The order was written in plain language, indicating that the situation was extremely urgent. Tsunagakuer's intelligence department had no time to encrypt the text. Those 3 short sentences left Kazekage feeling as if he had swallowed a whole pig's leg whole, taking him a long time to digest. Sigh. Instruct the brothers stationed outside to abandon all outer fortifications, set up more traps inside the fortifications, concentrate all forces to guard the central fortress of Lashi, and instruct Yura to be prepared to fill in the wells at any time. Burn all documents with writing on them. Kazekage issued the orders, then handed the note to his wife, Kazekage. Hideki took the note and his eyes widened instantly. Don't just stand there, hurry up and pass on the order. Konoha's White Fang will arrive at noon. We should buy more time for the village, more time for the third Hokage, and more time for our sasori. Guimyu said calmly to his wife. Order the troops to rest in place for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, launch a full-scale attack on Lashi fortress. All Jonin combat teams should directly attack the central main fortress. Ignore the outer defenses, leave those areas to the Chunin and Genin to clear. Sakumo Hatake, in the prime of his life, possessed a resolute face, a robust physique, and decisive actions. He uttered no unnecessary words or made any superfluous movements. The lines of his muscles were so well proportioned, and his entire demeanor was like a sharpened blade, seemingly capable of piercing through the gaze of anyone who looked at him. No one dared to question or challenge his orders, they could only resolutely carry them out. The plan to launch a surprise attack on Tsunagakuer was proposed by Sakumo Hatake. According to his detailed analysis of intelligence, most of Tsunagakuer's main forces were on the front lines of the Land of Rain, while the western part of the Land of Wind was blocked by the Land of Fire and the Land of River. A large number of elite Jonin stationed in the west were transferred to the front line of the Land of Rain. Only the 50-odd people stationed at the Lashi fortress were left, and there were not many Jonin. The experienced Hatake Sakumo seized this opportunity and immediately wrote to the third Hokage, using diplomatic means to force the Land of Rivers to grant passage, while he led a detachment straight to Tsunagakuer. At this time, the third Hokage had only recently taken office and was full of ambition. He immediately saw this as a golden opportunity to eliminate the western threat to Konoha and completely take over Tsunagakuer. He quickly devised a plan and resolved the diplomatic issue of obtaining passage through the Land of Rivers in just one day. Immediately, Hatake Sakumo was appointed to lead 800 ninja as the vanguard to execute the westward advance plan. Akimichi Torifu, Mitokado Homura, and other formidable generals organized a second large force to follow. If the entire plan could be executed smoothly, Tsunagakuer would likely be in grave danger. Report: the central fortress of Lashi Fortress has been breached by the forward troops using fire-style techniques and explosive tags. The remnants of Tsunagakuer are putting up a fierce resistance, relying on the terrain. 2 puppeteers are proving quite troublesome. Come on, Team 7, let's go take a look. Hatake Sakumo picked up his family's heirloom sword, with 2 ninjas following closely behind. The central fortress of Lashi, standing tall amidst the sandstorm, should theoretically be a circular structure, but now half of it has been destroyed. Smoke still lingers, and scattered around are the corpses of Konoha and Tsunagakuer ninjas, broken kunao and shattered shuriken. The battle appeared to have been quite intense and was nearing its end. Hundreds of men, clad in green combat vests and wielding ninja tools, watched intently at the remaining enemies ahead. The couple, Kazekage and Kazekage, each operated 2 puppets, blocking the way. They were covered in wounds and blood, clearly exhausted from a fierce battle, both in terms of stamina and chakra. Behind them were 7 or 8 Sand Village ninja, similarly wounded and weary. The outcome is already decided. A desperate struggle is pointless, it's better to surrender now. I'll only say this once. Sakumo Hatake stepped forward. Akasunakai didn't answer, but simply smiled at Hatake Sakumo. Then don't blame me. Hatake Sakumo drew the short sword from behind him. In an instant, the room was filled with a blinding white light, and the flashing of white short swords filled the air. Hatake Sakumo's figure was like a ghost, so elusive that it was difficult for anyone to catch a glimpse of him. Swish, swish. With just 2 strikes, 4 sturdy combat puppets were chopped into a pile of rotten wood. The Akazuko and Kiki couple exchanged a helpless glance, then closed their eyes in despair. Without wasting words, Hatake Sakumo lunged forward, intending to end the fight with a single strike. Just as the blade sliced through the throat of the red sand tree, a small clump of black powder condensed on the blade like water. Then the powder rapidly grew into a small black iron rod. Hatake Sakumo found that no matter how hard he tried, the blade could not advance an inch. The experienced Hatake Sakumo quickly performed a backflip and dodged 7 or 8 meters away, holding the sword in both hands in a defensive stance. Hideki Akazuko stared wide-eyed in astonishment at the small black iron rod that had appeared out of nowhere. This is Senior Jing Hang's little throwing rod. Chapter 5. For a top-tier swordsman like Hatake Sakumo, who doesn't rely on any elemental ninjutsu but rather on his iron-willed taijutsu and superb swordsmanship, there are very few natural enemies who can completely counter him. If such a technique exists, magnet release is definitely one of the few that can counter it, and it's extremely effective against it, since even the best sword is made of iron. This is truly a fine sword. No wonder it's the legendary White Fang of Konoha. Jing Hang exclaimed, admiring the renowned weapon as he examined it. Meanwhile, the weapon's owner was leaning against a wall, coughing up blood. Inside the collapsed fortress, only a few Konoha ninjas were still breathing. Hundreds of elite Konoha ninjas lay scattered in pools of blood, which smeared the floor and walls, filling the entire space with a pungent stench of blood. The entire central fortress of Lashi covers an area of approximately 600 square meters. The limit of Jing Hang Iron Sand's control range is 800 meters. So many people are crammed into this semi-enclosed space, which is neither too big nor too small, but just right. This was practically a battlefield built specifically for Jing Hang. In this environment, there was nowhere to hide or dodge, so Jing Hang simply released all 12 tons of iron sand, sealed in a scroll, he was carrying. Just as Hatake Sakumo was about to launch his final attack, Jing Hang had just filled the entire fortress space with the iron sand. You Konoha ninjas across the way, I've surrounded you all by myself, Jing Hang thought with a wicked grin. What happened next was terrifying. Countless black iron filings suddenly surged out from all directions like a raging flood. The massive fortress instantly transformed into a scene of carnage, like clothes being constantly churned in a washing machine. The black flood was mixed with scattered, broken kunai and shuriken that tumbled and roared wildly through the crowd. It was also mixed with the painful howls and screams of countless Konoha ninjas. Some Konoha ninja reacted quickly and retreated rapidly, only to find that their escape route had already been cut off. They were pierced through by the rolling iron sand before they could even maneuver in the air. Some ninjas attempted to block the black flood by using water and earth ninjutsu, but the flood came from all directions, and one-way resistance seemed so fragile. The water dragon bullets formed by water ninjutsu had almost no effect on the iron torrent, and the earthen walls formed by earth ninjutsu were quickly destroyed by the iron torrent as if they were made of paper. These resistances were like bubbles rising in a flood, vanishing without a trace in the blink of an eye. This battle became the battle that made the Third Kazekage, Kagehiro, famous. Later, many Konoha ninjas circulated the following saying, if you smell iron while fighting sand ninjas, retreat immediately, as you may still have a chance to live. But if you see black iron sand on the ground, your name is already on the Grim Reaper's list. It's not entirely fair to blame Jing Hang for his ruthless methods. After all, in times of war, it's normal to die on the battlefield. Besides, he had just taken office and needed to carry out some blood sacrifices to establish his authority, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to control the situation, either internally or externally. If we save him, he might still be of some use, Jing Hang said, glancing at Hitaki Sakumo's eyelids. Yes, Lord Kazekage. AKA's Hyakiki replied, kneeling on one knee. He was now completely convinced of the mighty Third Hokage's power. I'll go clear out the remaining stragglers on the outskirts. You guys rest first. Jing Hang turned to leave. Lord Kazekage, please be careful. We've set up some traps on the outer perimeter, Hideki Akazugo warned. Oh, really? Jing Hang formed hand seals, creating several shadow clones. The land of wines, night howls on the front lines of the sands. Inside the tent, Elder Cho was installing the prosthetic limb she had just made. She moved her fingers, a look of dissatisfaction on her face. She picked up a screwdriver with her left hand and began making modifications. As the wife of the first Kazekage, Retsuto, this isn't something I made up, I found it on Baidu. She witnessed her husband defeat all rivals with his sword and spear, and establish a village in the desert with his immense strength. Almost every brick and tile in the village was built under Chiyo's watchful eye. She loved her village more than anyone else, considering it her own child. This Cho is not the frail, old woman who pretends to be dead from Shippuden. Inheriting her deceased husband's will, Cho, though over 50, possesses a fierce and domineering personality like Retsuto, and is also cunning. Within the Tsunagakura leadership, she is the leader of the martial arts faction, and she absolutely supports the second shaman's plan to invade the Land of Rain. 80% of the Land of Wind is desert, making it resource-poor and prone to internal strife, with constant infighting among its various tribes. Although the first Hokage unified the land, the poor remained poor, and the lack of resources persisted. Even during the first 5-Kage summit, the first Hokage preferred to select only one-tailed beast rather than spend money to buy another. Why? Because they're poor. The Land of Rain has abundant rainfall and rich resources. It's also a strategic location controlling Iwagakure to the north and Konoha to the south. Holding onto it would not only alleviate the village's dire economic situation but also give them a strategic advantage. But now, sigh, I hope Kigo can turn the tide, Cho murmured to herself, looking at the flickering candle light. Lady Cho, the supplies from the rear have arrived. A little more on the left, oh yes, a little more. Jing Hang commanded Yekang to control the scorching release fireballs, instantly melting the iron sand into molten iron and continuously filling the hollow fortress. Jing Hang shouted, splash! Sizzle! Luo Sha poured a bucket of cold water on it, and the red-hot molten iron instantly solidified. Okay, that's finished. Jing Hang looked at his work with satisfaction. Raza was highly efficient, leading over 300 fully equipped ninjas to the Lashi fortress in just a day and a half. Although the battle was over, based on information obtained from interrogating prisoners, Konoha might launch a second wave of attacks at any time. Rather than fighting to the death and harming civilians in Tsunagakure, it's better to keep the enemy outside the country's borders. Jing Hang used several tons of iron sand, combined with Yekang's scorching release, to weld a half-iron shell back onto the central fortress that had collapsed halfway. In this way, the fortress's defensive capabilities were actually greatly improved. This is just a temporary fix. The wind and sand are strong here, and the sheet metal corrodes quickly. We'll still have to build a brick wall around it later, Jing Hangdeo said. Yes, Lord Kazekage, Luo Sha and Gui Mu nodded in response. All right, that's about it for now. Luo Sha will oversee the defense of the fortress. Gui Mu, You're still injured, but as the host, you'll assist him. Jing Hang put on his goggles and wrapped his face in a veil. Are you leaving already? Gui Mu asked, somewhat surprised. Konoha suffered a great loss here. Whether to continue attacking Lashi fortress is something Konoha's leadership needs to carefully consider. Konoha should already know that our reinforcements have arrived. If the surprise attack fails, this so-called westward advance plan will be meaningless. The real decisive battle is now taking place in the night howling sands. Jing Hang pointed south. By the way, Gimu, do you have a son? He gathered his chakra, preparing to depart. Yes, Lord Kazekage, my son Sasori of the Red Sand is just 5 years old this year, Gimu answered honestly. Hehe, Sasori of the Red Sand? How about this, after the war, I'll take him in as my godson. Jing Hang said with a confident smile. Chapter 6. Legend has it that the night howling sand sea was once a vast freshwater lake, no less than the size of an ocean. However, due to environmental changes and the passage of time, the former ocean has degenerated into a small oasis in the vast desert. When the north wind howls at night, one can always hear the mournful and hollow cries of the remains of some shellfish in the wind, hence the name Night Screaming Sand Sea. The night howling sands is the closest oasis to the land of rain. As early as the time of the first Kazekage, ninjas were sent to garrison it. During the time of the second Kazekage, construction was further strengthened, with food supplies and wells dug. The night howling sands was gradually transformed into the largest military fortress in the northern part of the Land of Wind. A glance at a map reveals that it was undoubtedly an outpost for attacking the Land of Rain. This place has now become the front line between the Konoha and Tsunagakuer armies. Tsunagakuer, having regained their home ground, has become more adept at fighting. After receiving some military supplies, their morale has soared, and they have managed to fight to a standstill against the Konoha army, which outnumbers Tsunagakuer twice as many. Cho has gradually stabilized the situation, and Danzo is not in a hurry to attack. A stalemate gradually formed again. This was precisely what Cho feared most about Danzo's tactics. Cho knew clearly that the current surge in morale was just a seemingly perfect bubble, limited supplies would eventually run out. Danzo's decision not to continue the attack was also waiting for the day when Tsunagakuer's supplies would run out. Then Tsunagakuer would face a true and complete collapse. Cho looked at the map, her brow furrowed with worry. Lady Cho, the third Kazekage has arrived, a servant reported. Summon all team commanders to a meeting at the main camp immediately. Jing Hang removed his goggles and veil, letting out a long breath. After traveling thousands of kilometers round trip and driving continuously for 3 days and 3 nights, Jing Hang's massive blue protective gear was almost empty. He wiped his face with a towel and shook the sand off his cloak, constantly refining the plans he had conceived on the road. Everyone has arrived and is awaiting your instructions in the camp, Lord Kazekage, the attendant said. Okay. Lead the way. Come with me to find a new white cloak later. Jing Hang took off the cloak immediately, the sand on it wouldn't be cleaned off in a short time. This is the current battlefield situation. After introducing the situation, Karuro looked at the newly appointed third Kazekage with a hint of nervousness, wondering what kind of temperament this new leader would have. Jing Hang rested his chin on his hand, gazing silently at the map marking the red and blue forces. The numerous sand village generals and Cho awaited his orders in silence. How many people are left here? Jing Hang finally asked the first question. 5,874 people, Garuda replied immediately. What about the other side? Approximately 10,000 people. How many more days can the supplies last? A maximum of 25 days. Are the current supplies being transported from Moon Lake? Yes. How long does it take for a supply convoy to travel from Lake Moon to here? 15 days. Jing Hang fell into deep thought again. I have an idea. Jing Hang picked up the red pencil on the table and drew a circle on the map. Let's change the location of the final battle here. Jing Hang pointed to the circle he had just drawn, and everyone's eyes turned to the map. The circled area was clearly marked Lake of the Moon. That night, the Sand Sea, just like that, abandoned it, simply handed it over to Konoha. Cho asked, puzzled. A murmur of discussion immediately arose from the crowd. It seemed everyone didn't understand Jing Hang's words. Hehe, Grandma Cho, don't get excited. Everyone, please don't rush. Jing Hang smiled and gently pressed Cho down into a chair with both hands. If we save our people but lose our land, we will save both. If we save our land but lose our people, we will lose both. Our great retreat today is precisely for our great advance in the future. These words resonated deeply, and the crowd immediately fell silent. There's a kind of success called retreat, and a kind of failure called occupation. Since Konoha wants this place so much, then give it to them. Jing Hang waved his hand arrogantly at everyone. By the way, where is the army's outhouse? This is definitely not the work of that old hag Cho, Danzo muttered to himself. Looking at the camp billowing black smoke in front of him, Danzo's usually expressionless face twitched slightly. The destruction was truly thorough. Orochimaru and Jiraiya, instruct the pursuing forces to cling tightly to the Tsunagakure troops like hyenas, preventing them from retreating safely. If a large-scale counterattack occurs, retreat. Danzo swiftly issued the order. In the middle of the night, Danzo, who was sleeping, received a report from a scout ninja that the Sand Village camp in the Night Howl Sands was in an uproar, with the neighing of men and the neighing of horses. The usually calm Danzo immediately ordered the entire army to be on alert, but did not launch an attack. In his view, as long as this stalemate was maintained, he would surely be the victor, and a rash attack might just fall into the enemy's trap. But when they got to the scene at dawn and assessed the situation, they discovered that Tsunagakure had indeed actually withdrawn this time. When Danzo arrived at the Tsunagakure camp, he was dumbfounded. To put it simply, the entire camp was completely deserted, not a single wall to block the wind. Not a single roof without holes. Not a single grain of food. Not a single piece of firewood to burn. And even more astonishingly, Lord Danzo. The beautiful ninja Tsunade pinched her nose and looked at Danzo with disdain while holding a test tube. Speak. I've inspected all 8 wells here, they've all been poisoned, and with large amounts of excrement. For poisons, I can develop an antidote within 2 days, for others, I can only repeatedly filter them. Danzo's face grew even more somber. He spoke after a long pause. All right, water and food will be supplied from the rear of the Land of Rain, it's only a day's journey. The troops are not allowed to camp at the Sand Village's camp. We'll head towards Orochimaru and the others in an hour. The young Jiraiya and the equally young Orochimaru were leading more than 100 Konoha ninjas, running at top speed through the desert. Orochimaru, let's see who catches up with the Sand Village's team first. Cough, cough. Jiraiya shouted arrogantly at Orochimaru, only to immediately swallow 2 mouthfuls of sand blown by the wind. You big idiot! Orochimaru said disdainfully, distancing himself from Jiraiya. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of them, with long blue hair, wearing a white veil and a white cloak, standing proudly atop the sand dune. Iron Sand. Timely rain. Jing Hang didn't mince words and launched the first attack as soon as he saw the team advancing. Countless iron filings, propelled at high speed by magnetic force, rained down on the Konoha ninja like a storm of iron. Orochimaru, running in front, remained alert, dodging the barrage with several backflips. Jiraiya activated his ninja art, Jizo Needle, completely covering himself with his long silver hair. Unfortunately, the Konoha ninjas behind him didn't have time to dodge and were instantly riddled with bullets. The blue sandstorm of Tsunagakure, you are Jing Hang. Jiraiya said, a slight split appearing in his silver hair. Yes, you know me. Jing Hang smiled. Hidden shadow serpent limbs. Orochimaru launched a counterattack the instant he escaped the attack range of Iron Rain. Rakshasa Shield. A huge black iron shield blocked the countless snake heads that attacked, but unexpectedly, the snakes bypassed the shield and continued to attack Jing Hang. "There's something else," Jiraiya said, just as Jing Hang was preparing to deal with the snakes. Lion's Mane Technique. Countless hard, silver hairs instantly erupted, piercing Jing Hang's heart. The two's coordination was almost flawless. Bang! Jing Hang, pierced through, instantly turned into a wisp of white smoke. Shadow Clone Technique. The forbidden technique developed by the second Hokage. How could he possibly use it? Orochimaru pondered. He didn't even consider that after reading hundreds of chapters of the Naruto manga, even a fool could figure out such a simple hand seal. The real Jing Hang emerged from behind the sand dunes, clapping. "Not bad, not bad. No wonder even that old man with the ventilator, Hanzo of the Salamander, called you the three legendary Sunin. Hey? Where's Tsunade? I heard she's a beauty. Introduce her to me." Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique. Wind Release, Wind Cutter Technique. The other Konoha ninjas also reacted and launched an attack on Jing Hang. Iron Sand. Iron Wall Technique. Jing Hang silently controlled the flow of iron sand beneath the desert from behind the iron wall. The Konoha ninjas' attacks continued. The defensive iron barrier was already glowing red from the fire release. Orochimaru and Jiraiya exchanged a glance, seemingly both sensing danger. Iron Sand. The art of the Steel Garden. Suddenly, the desert beneath their feet began to shake, countless black steel vines rapidly sprouted from the ground, and countless drops of blood bloomed like tragic flowers in the desert. Chapter 7. So this is the legendary Sharingan. Jing Hang examined the small, transparent bottle in his hand closely against the sunlight. Inside the bottle, a pair of eyes with three tomo surrounded by pupils, floated in a clear solution. The two eyeballs swayed slightly as Jing Hang moved, and their alluring red color possessed a captivating power. Yes, it's that guy named Uchiha Kagami. He tried to use a genjutsu on Shaman, but Shaman struck first and took it out. When I arrived, Shaman was so badly injured, his kidney was pierced, and he was still tightly clutching those eyeballs. Luckily, I had a collection bottle with me, so they should still be relatively fresh. Want them? How about I put them in for you? Cho said calmly and casually. No rush, let's put it in the cold storage first. I haven't figured out how to use it yet. Jing Hang handed the small bottle back to Kyande. As a transmigrator, Jing Hang naturally knew that the Sharingan was definitely a good thing, but to be honest, it was quite evil. The process of awakening the Sharingan, the Mangekyo Sharingan, and the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan was increasingly troublesome, and it often involved severing bonds, which was too mentally taxing and bad for one's brain, easily driving one insane. Although each skill is more powerful than the last, and you can even activate Susanoo Gundam in the end, the durability of these skills is terrible. You'll easily go blind after using them for a while. Replace your eyes? What are the chances that you'll have a biological brother who has also activated Kaleidoscope Sharingan waiting for you? However, ever since Jing Hang started learning ninjutsu, he has been pondering what to do if he encounters the Uchiha clan in battle. We're not afraid of piloting Gundams, we have Gundams too. We've tested them on tailed beasts and the results are fantastic. The tricky thing is genjutsu, which is also Jing Hang's weakest skill among all his ninjutsu. He doesn't know it at all. So Jing Hang has done a lot of training to resist genjutsu, but the Uchiha clan's genjutsu. Alas, it's impossible to guard against such a thing. Fortunately, ever since that old BD Madara Uchiha pretended to be dead and hid himself, there has been a talent gap in the Uchiha clan, and it seems that no decent talent has emerged yet. The only somewhat famous Uchiha Kagami has already been killed by Shaman, he was just playing with his eyes a moment ago. It's still decades before powerful figures like Shisui, Obito, and Itaki are born, so he's not a significant threat. Pulling his thoughts back from their wanderings, Jing Hang sat up straight and said solemnly to Cho, "Grandma Cho, I happen to have something to discuss with you." "Is it about this war?" "Yes." "Then you tell me." "After defeating Danzo, I want to form an alliance with Konoha." Cho fell silent, her expression slightly somber. But Jing Hang showed no sign of stopping, continuing his eloquent speech. "I've seen the intelligence that Ebizo sent up, the intelligence he's gathered from his spies in various locations. 8 days ago, the hidden cloud village had secretly gathered ninjas, but their specific intentions were unclear. 6 days ago, a riot broke out in Kigakuer, and almost all of its high-ranking members were slaughtered by rogue ninja. The major clans began to fight each other. 5 days ago, Onaki, the third Kazekage of Iwagakuer, issued a general mobilization order, and 3 days ago he had already annexed Akagami village and 3 surrounding small villages without ninja villages. 2 days ago, a large number of Kirigakuer ninja landed in the Land of Fire, their specific purpose unknown." Jing Hang spoke slowly and deliberately, pouring Cho a cup of tea. Chiyo's cold expression turned thoughtful. "This is no longer a small-scale skirmish, it's a ninja world war. As the leader of the martial arts faction in Sunagakuer, Chiyo's desire and constant pursuit is to gain the greatest benefit for the village through war, to secure a better future for the village's children, and to gain greater influence in the power struggle among the 5 great nations. He is neither a simple-minded warmonger like Kagaya's clan, nor an ambitious schemer like Black Zetsu who always instigates wars. Moreover, as someone who experienced the First Shinobi World War during the early days of chaos and the rise of the 5 nations, Cho certainly knew what a world war meant. Rocks could be shattered into dust, villages could be reduced to ashes, hard-earned wealth could vanish into thin air, and living lives could turn into piles of bones. The current situation is strikingly similar to that of the First Shinobi World War. After these past few months of war with Imagakure and Konoha, both the militant and conservative factions have suffered significant losses. Their manpower, wealth, and food supplies have all reached critical levels. If it weren't for Jing Hang's heroic efforts in defeating Konoha's White Fang on the Western Front, Sunagakuer might not exist anymore. Keep in mind, Jing Hang's final mobilization squeezed the full strength of the Anbu and the Ninja Academy. Konoha, on the other hand, likely only used half its forces, and powerful figures like Hiruzen Sarutobi were still stationed in Konoha, having not even made a move. Sunagakuer must extricate itself from this war, recuperate, develop its economy, and use the war to absorb scattered talents and increase its population. Only by becoming the final victor can it be a true victor. Otherwise, if Sunagakuer is drawn into this crucible of war, it will either die or suffer severe damage. Jing Hang said resolutely. Looking at this young man she had watched grow up, filled with profound strategy and unwavering conviction, his indomitable aura made Chiyo's eyes slightly unfocused. For a moment, the image of her husband, Retsudo, seemed to overlap with that of this young man. Slowly, Chiyo's gaze also became incredibly firm. "How long do you estimate this war will last?" 4 to 5 years. "Are you sure Konoha can achieve final victory?" "Konoha boasts a deep foundation and numerous skilled fighters. Hiruzen Sarutobi is decisive, resolute, and astute, rarely making mistakes. Victory is assured." Cho closed her eyes and thought for a moment. "What do you need an old woman like me for?" Upon hearing that there was a chance, Jing Hang quickly stepped forward and flatteringly filled Chiyo's cup with tea. "You're a senior figure in the village, you've watched me grow up. Don't you know my own capabilities? I've only just become the Wind Shadow, I don't have much of a backbone yet, and I'm afraid some families won't understand why I'm making this decision." Cho is the leader of the martial arts faction, so her intervention is naturally more effective than the Kazekage's intimidation based on his large head and hat. "What's so hard to understand? You'll understand once you've fought to the death on the battlefield. You're the rightfully recommended wind shadow by the shaman, recognized by the elders of all the clans. Who would dare disobey your orders? Don't worry, this old lady will have her say when the time comes. Cho slammed her hand on the table with an air of authority. All right, this matter is basically settled. How confident are you in defeating Danzo Shimura? Jing Hang confidently downed the tea in front of him in one gulp and smiled. I wouldn't say 100%, but at least 99%. Ouch. That hurts. Jiraiya winced in pain. Don't scream. It's a good thing this iron filings weren't poisoned, or you'd be dead already. Tsunade held a huge magnet, attracting the iron filings embedded in Jiraiya's flesh. Danzo squinted, picked up a small pinch of the extracted iron filings with his fingers, kneaded it carefully, and then sniffed it. Is he alone? He's all alone, Orochimaru replied. Have you ever had any dealings with him before? I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. Sigh, this defeat is not your fault. Danzo sighed. The Anbu's intelligence gathering on him is still not detailed enough. This is outrageous. For such an important enemy, our intelligence only includes his battle record and life story. There is no information whatsoever about his ninjutsu characteristics or tactical habits. Is this what you call intelligence gathering? Danzo scolded a masked Anbu member. How much iron filings do you think he carried? Orochimaru thought for a moment and said. Judging from that ninjutsu technique called Steel Garden, it weighs at least 10 tons. Order the entire army to retreat to the Night Howling Sands. Inform logistics to purchase large quantities of magnets in the Land of Rain and surrounding towns and villages. Prepare at least 30 tons. No. 50 tons. Danzo held up 5 fingers with an air of dominance. It seems Lord Danzo is planning to build a giant beast-catching cage. Orochimaru smiled and licked his lips. Chapter 8. Lake Moon, to be precise, is actually a large oasis surrounding Lake Moon, located about 400 kilometers from Tsunagakure village. The lake is not large, with an area of only about 20 acres. This is already the largest inland freshwater lake in the Land of Wind. A ring of low shrubs grows around the lake, obviously planted intentionally to conserve water and soil. More than 100 miles outward from the lake, many drought-resistant desert plants are planted in concentric circles, thus forming a very large oasis. At the outermost edge of the oasis, there is a simple man-made windbreak wall and some military fortresses, which were built during the time of the first Kazekage, Retsudo. It's so beautiful. I think the environment here is better than Tsunagakure. It's about the same size as Tsunagakure, and it's rare to find such a large lake in the desert. If we build a city around the lake and plan it well, I can triple its size in less than 5 years. Granny Cho, why didn't Lord Retsudo build Tsunagakure here? Jing Hang shaded his eyes with his hand as he gazed at the shimmering, azure lake, and couldn't help but admire it. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but ask a question. It's not that we haven't thought about it, but the main reason we didn't build it here is for strategic considerations. Cho looked around to make sure no one was there. When Retsudo founded Tsunagakure, this was the first place he chose for the village. However, he was meticulous and specifically sent Ebizo to explore the water source of Lake Moon. After a year of investigation, it was discovered that Lake Moon was not a source of water without roots, but rather water from the Shul River seeping underground and eventually forming a rich aquifer on top of the impermeable layer. If the upstream water source were to be restricted, the water source here would gradually dry up and quickly become a dead land. By the way, you'd better keep this a secret. I'm only telling you this because I know you're the Kazekage. If Danzo finds out, he'll definitely cut off your supply lines upstream, hehe, Cho teased. No wonder the first and second Hokage always focused their attacks on the Land of Rain. I thought. What do you think they care about? Do you think they'd be interested in that damp, rainy place? Don't underestimate your strategic vision, senior. Hee. Cho walked forward with her hands behind her back. Then let's transform this into a logistics base, open a farm, and have immigrants come to produce grains, vegetables, fruits, and medicinal herbs, and raise pigs and sheep. That will definitely greatly improve the economic problems of Sunagakure. How will we transport it over there? It's more than 400 kilometers across a desert. They're building roads. Building a road in the desert, only halfway through, and then burying the other half. Cho thought Jing Hang was joking. So she changed the subject and asked. Speaking of Danzo, that old tortoise is quite shrewd. After suffering a minor loss, he retreated back to the night howling sands to mend his hole and filter out the dung. What do you think he's thinking now? What could you possibly be thinking? Trying to figure out how to get back at me, hey? Jing Hang laughed. Cho suddenly stopped in her tracks. You need a good talking to. You're the third Kazekage now, not the elite jonin you used to be. Let your subordinates do the fighting, don't always put yourself in danger. Do you think your life is your own responsibility? Sigh, I don't want to either, but there's a shortage of talent, too few truly capable people. I don't trust others to handle certain tasks, Jing Hang sighed helplessly. I think after this war ends, I'll travel around under the guise of state affairs and diplomacy. With such turbulent times, there must be great talents hidden in the mountains and fields. Let's let a few catfish stir up this muddy water in the village. It's only been a few generations, and we haven't produced many decent ones. Indeed, compared to Konoha's inclusiveness and Kumigakure's extreme martial spirit, Sunagakure's talent cultivation mechanism is undoubtedly backward, and it has no way to discover and protect special bloodline inheritors. Over the years, only one scorching release user, Pakura, has emerged, and Jing Hang only managed to find him from a crowd based on his memories. Consider the original storyline. In the later stages of the Sand Village, only Gaara and Sasori were truly formidable. That's two top-tier ninjas. The other one was a rogue ninja, the likes of Temari and Kankuro were simply insignificant. Cho and Ebizo, these old revolutionaries, would be relegated to museums in Konoha, yet they're still fighting to the death now that it's the fifth Hokage. It's like having a general in Shu and Liao Hua as the vanguard. This situation must change. It's not good for the leader to have to do everything personally. Things are changing. You've always been so ambitious. The tree hasn't even been planted yet, and you're already thinking about what the fruit will taste like. What? You'll have to wait until this war is over, won't you? Do you think there's anything missing, Shikinobu? Danzo stared at the middle-aged ninja in front of him. We still haven't obtained enough useful intelligence. Jing Hang, despite his youth, is a very experienced ninja. From his debut until now, he rarely leaves survivors on missions. All we know is that he can control iron sand and use shadow clones, we know nothing else. Therefore, our current plan is only a rough draft, and we can't guarantee a 100% success rate in capturing him. We're barely 60% certain. Nara Shikigami shook his head. As the leader of the Nara clan, known for its meticulousness, even with his exceptional intelligence, he was powerless to do anything with such scarce information. Try to make it as perfect as possible. Just tell me what resources and people you need. Danzo remained as calm as ever. I believe this war will end once we take him down. Do your best, Shikigami-kun. Danzo bowed slightly in a very polite manner. Nara Shikigami quickly returned the bow. Extremely suspicious, cautious, insidious, ruthless, distrustful of others, intolerant of even the slightest oversight, and only feels at ease when things go according to their own ideas. He often talks about ninjas having to sacrifice themselves, but when it comes to actually doing it, he can't do it himself. This is a characteristic of the elderly Danzo in the manga. In fact, this characteristic is already beginning to emerge in the young Danzo, who is now in his prime. When Sunagakure and Omegakure were locked in a fierce battle, they intervened, sacrificing the 3 legendary Sunin to deal with the renowned demigod of the ninja world, Hanzo of the Salamander. Once the situation was settled, they used their overwhelming numerical superiority to force Hanzo to sign a humiliating treaty. When dealing with the second Kazekage, Shaman, they again sacrificed Kagami Uchiha to lure the enemy into ambush, while they themselves launched a sneak attack from behind. Danzo has truly mastered the art of sacrificing others to achieve his own ends. Everything is unfolding exactly as he predicted. Now, the only obstacle standing in his way is the remnant of Tsunagakure entrenched at Lake Moon. By removing this obstacle, whether he eliminates them or submits like a Megakure, Danzo will have accomplished a remarkable feat. This will increase his influence within Konoha's leadership, and it's not impossible that he might one day become Hokage. Unexpectedly, a blue-haired kid suddenly appeared in front of them. A shrewd retreat decisively abandoned the Night Howling Sands outpost, leaving only dilapidated houses and a few wells filled with excrement. It was like being forced to swallow a mouthful of hot porridge, neither swallowing nor spitting it out. Should we continue the pursuit to Moon Lake? That would stretch the supply lines of this army of over 10,000 tenfold. Moreover, the supply lines are extremely vulnerable to harassment. A moment of carelessness could lead to the annihilation of the entire army. Not pursuing? Tsunagakure could exploit the short supply lines with the village to replenish troops, stockpile resources, and recover their strength. Even securing external reinforcements would make it much harder to capture. If the campaign ends in failure, Hiruzen Sarutobi and other Konoha officials would have something to say. Furthermore, intelligence indicates that Iwagakure further north is restless, its forces already close to the land of rain. Bring Jiraiya and Orochimaru here, Danzo ordered, a flash of murderous intent crossing his eyes. Chapter 9. After resting for 10 days in the Night Howling Sands, Danzo's army moved. After another 12 days of rapid march, the army arrived at Lake Moon and, without the slightest hesitation, immediately launched an attack on the Sand Village's fortifications. And this was no small-scale attack, there was no probing, no reconnaissance, just the elite troops coming out in full force, charging in headlong like reckless youths. Jing Hang was puzzled. Had Danzo spent 10 days in the Night Howling Sands only coming up with this idea? A street brawl? Strike first? Jing Hang couldn't figure it out, so he picked up his binoculars and carefully observed the battlefield. Based on Jing Hang's experience, Konoha was definitely not putting on a show or launching a feint this time. Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and even the previously unseen Tsunade had all appeared on the battlefield. Although Konoha had come from afar, they had the advantage of numbers, while Tsunagakure, though fewer in number, had the advantage of having rested and recuperated, as well as a relatively complete defensive system. For a time, the two sides were evenly matched. Spiritual communication. 3 loud shouts were heard, followed by 3 large plumes of white smoke. As the white smoke dissipated, a giant toad, a giant snake, and a giant slug appeared on the battlefield. The ninjas from both sides, who had been entangled, all looked up at the 3 enormous summoned beasts. The Konoha ninjas erupted in excited shouts. Damn it, no sportsmanship! In the blink of an eye, Jing Hang quickly pulled out 2 scrolls and released Iron Shot. Magnetic Release, a technique of Gundam. Behind the sand village appeared a black giant, no less tall than 3 summoned beasts. The giant was dressed as an ancient general, wearing a beast face armor, a prince's helmet, and holding a halberd. He looked so majestic and powerful. Hey, stop! Watch me, Lu Buletin, fight the 3 heroes! Jing Hang shouted, commanding the Iron Man to charge forward and engage the 3 ninjas in battle. The Tsunagakure ninjas were immediately invigorated and cheered. See that? Include this technique in the plan. Danzo looked up at Jing Hang's Gundam. Yes, the plan will probably need to be changed. This technique looks complicated. Narashikagami stared intently at Jing Hang, his eyes seeming to pierce through the giant Iron Man. You have 7 days. That's enough. Fire release, Toad Oil Flame Bullet. Jiraiya and his Toad Gamabunta unleashed a combined attack, sending a massive ball of oil flames hurtling towards them like a tidal wave. Lu Buletin's left side was instantly engulfed in flames. Jing Hang calmly manipulated the iron sand to tumble and spin, and it seemed as if the left half of Lu Buletin's armor had disappeared all at once. It turned out that the burning iron sand, which was soaked in oil, had been separated and gathered into a burning iron ring in his hand, which he then threw at Tsunade. In the center of the ring of fire, a giant slug rapidly split into countless smaller slugs, which then reformed around it. It then unleashed a powerful acid attack on Lu Buletin. With a hissing sound, white smoke billowed from Lu Buletin's body. Damn it, I overlooked something. Jing Hang gritted his teeth. There really wasn't a good way to deal with acid and iron shot. He could only avoid it. Instead of retreating, Jing Hang advanced, and the Iron Man Lu Buletin brandished his halberd, thrusting it straight at the slug, forcing the slug to split apart once more. Unable to continue its sticky, acidic attack, Orochimaru, riding on a multitude of snakes, lunged forward and quickly coiled himself around Lu Buletin, opening his blood-red maw at Jing Hang. In a flash, Lu Buletin grabbed Manda's neck with his left hand. Orochimaru leaped down, wielding the Kusanagi sword, and charged straight at Jing Hang. Seeing Orochimaru's attack, Jing Hang showed no fear, instantly conjuring a pair of iron sand nunchucks in his hand. With a loud scream, he met Orochimaru's attack head-on. Jing Hang fought the 3 ninjas alone, holding his own against all 3. He spun like a windmill, and the battle was so fierce that the sky darkened and the sun and moon lost their light. The other ninjas consciously moved aside, clearing the battlefield for fear of being caught in the crossfire. The battle raged from day to night before both sides finally called a retreat. As expected of one of the 3 legendary Sunin personally appointed by Hanzo of the Salamander, I've never seen such a formidable opponent. So many tricks up their sleeve, such rapid health regeneration, and such incredible stamina. It's unbelievable that someone my age could be like this. I underestimated the heroes of the world. Jing Hang sighed, wiping his neck with a hot towel. Yes, they are 3 very promising young people. You can handle 2, but 3 might be a bit much, Cho said kindly, looking at Jing Hang. Kara-Q. Come in. Third Kazekage, what are your orders? A young ninja wielding a giant iron fan entered the tent. This young man was Karura's cousin, the second son of the Iron Fan clan of Tsunagakuer. He was capable and possessed excellent skills in 3-star fan ninjutsu. Go to each camp and select 500 elite soldiers. We'll launch a night raid tonight. A night raid? We're exhausted, but those Konoha ninjas aren't made of iron either. Tonight we'll burn down their camp and freeze them to death. Jing Hang grinned and sneered. I feel like Jing Hang is harder to deal with than a salamander. I feel like I've almost used all my strength, but he's still handling it with ease, Jiraiya said. His close combat and physical skills are also quite strong, Orochimaru said. His chakra reserves are unfathomable. If the 3 of us hadn't attacked from multiple angles, his iron sand variations might have been even greater. 1 or 2 of us alone would definitely not have been a match for him. Your defeat last time was not unjust. Tsunade looked at Orochimaru and Jiraiya and said. Narashikano didn't look up, rapidly jotting something down in his notebook. After a while, he looked up and asked Tsunade, do you think the sticky acid from Slug Sama's tongue and teeth has any effect on that iron statue? Yes, absolutely. After Jing Hang's Iron Man was hit by the slug's acid once, it has been constantly dodging the slug's attacks. Yes, I hope you'll let Jing Hang make as many moves as possible in tomorrow's battle. I need to calculate the total amount of his iron sand. I'll leave it to the 3 of you. Shikanobu bowed slightly to the 3 ninjas, then turned and walked out of the tent. Report. Enemy attack at night. The three ninjas exchanged a glance, then immediately rose and left the tent. Outside, the tent was already ablaze with firelight. The night raid wasn't as effective as expected. Thanks to Danzo's strict discipline and the well-trained Konoha ninja, the transition from defense to counterattack was swift. After burning down a third of the camp, Jing Hang realized the situation was dire and immediately fled. Unexpectedly, Danzo continued his attack on Tsunagakure the next morning, disregarding everyone's exhaustion. He even personally led the charge to boost morale. Helpless, Tsunagakure had no choice but to send all its troops into battle. Even Elder Ebizo, who had come to deliver supplies, was forced to join the fight, as there were very few skilled fighters available to stand guard. To everyone's surprise, on the third day, Konoha's attack continued as before. The relentless, all-out offensive made Jing Hang suspect that there must be a conspiracy. After all, Tsunagakure was fighting on home ground, with a favorable combat environment and occupying advantageous defensive positions. After 3 days of fighting, Konoha's losses far exceeded those of Tsunagakure, but the continuous attacks had also left Jing Hang exhausted. Garakyu. Gather 1,000 brothers tonight. Tonight, beat drums and gongs and shout at the gate of the Konoha camp. If they come out, you retreat. If they fall asleep, you continue the commotion. Anyway, if Danzo falls asleep tonight, you won't get any sleep. Jing Hang angrily assigned the task to Garakyu. After all this commotion, Danzo became much more obedient, and the Konoha army retreated 30 miles. Moreover, they raised the truce sign and did not send a single person to the Tsunagakure defense line. How many days has it been? It's been 3 days. Not a sound at all. There wasn't a sound at all. Jing Hang kept clicking his tongue. I don't think that old turtle Danzo was hiding anything good. Never mind him, Elder Cho, you've gone through all this trouble. No supplies, no water, let's see how many more days you can hold out. Jing Hang punched the Konoha camp on the map. Chapter 10. A convoy of vehicles struggled through the vast desert, battered by rolling sandstorms. Their attire revealed them to be Konoha ninja. The large carts carried water and supplies destined for the front lines. It's worth noting that throughout the Naruto anime, one notices their somewhat distorted technology. While they surpassed Earth's civilization in some aspects, such as Orochimaru's laboratory, they still couldn't overcome the fundamental limitations. Communication was primarily done by shouting, and travel relied mainly on walking. Although the anime doesn't delve into the world building, careful observation reveals nascent signs of industrialization. Therefore, we'll focus on the manga for now. Regarding technology and civilization, Boruto can be disregarded. We can't speculate on things we haven't witnessed. For example, in Naruto's depictions of Tsunagakure, you'll hardly see any camels, so these carts had to be manned. Something's up, a Konoha ninja observing the situation at the front of the convoy said warily. His eyes widened, countless veins bulging at his temples. His pupils were a blur of white, he was clearly a Hyuga clan ninja. The convoy came to an abrupt halt, and all the ninjas went on high alert. Soon after, it seemed as if a troop was charging towards them through the sandstorm, and in the biting wind, they could even hear a sound similar to the turning of a well pulley. Many Konoha ninja decided to strike first, firing kunao and shuriken into the billowing dust. However, there were no cries of pain from those struck, only the sounds of knives chopping into chopping boards. When the dust settled, the appearance of the newcomer was astonishing. 10 puppets, each with a different form and dressed in white, stood at the front of the procession, followed closely by hundreds of Sand Village ninja wielding various weapons, rushing into the convoy like a gust of wind. How many times have the Sand Village attacked our transport convoys? This is the 4th time. Who is leading the team? It's Cho, the elder of Tsunagakure. Good. Danzo suddenly stood up, as if he had heard some exciting news. Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Tsunade, you will escort the supply convoy from now on. I have only one request, make sure you severely injure the sand village that launched the sneak attack. Danzo gave the order to the 3 legendary Sunin. The 3 legendary ninjas had already received their missions and left. Danzo then looked at the ninja who had come to report to him. What are you still doing here? I haven't reported the battle losses yet. Our side suffered 82 casualties in this attack, 15 truckloads of water, and. Alright, I don't want to hear this. Tell Matsumoto-kun to allocate his water and food properly for the next few days, and this situation will improve immediately. Danzo impatiently interrupted the ninja. The food is fine, but the drinking water. Then let's organize ninjas skilled in water release and concentrate our efforts on collecting them using water release ninjutsu. The climate here is dry, and there's not much moisture in the air, so water-style ninjutsu isn't very effective. Water release is simply a technique that rapidly condenses moisture in the air into liquid water using chakra-shaped transformations and energy conversions to launch an attack. Water release cannot conjure water out of thin air. In the desert, where moisture is scarce, the effectiveness of water release ninjutsu is naturally limited. Didn't you hear my order? Danzo's tone turned somewhat displeased. Ninjas always have to make some sacrifices. Yes. The ninja reluctantly left the tent. Fool. Danzo said, somewhat displeased, after calming himself down. He spoke to a figure in the darkness. You should go and prepare too. The battle was unfolding exactly as Jing Hang had predicted. Danzo's main force couldn't breach his fortifications, so he organized several guerrilla units to harass Konoha's supply lines from the rear. According to his calculations, Konoha's food and water would only last for 10 days at most, or even less. When Danzo withdrew, Jing Hang would pursue him relentlessly. If Danzo didn't retreat, he'd make him die of thirst. The scales of victory were slowly tipping towards Tsunagakure's side. Lord Kazekage, our guerrilla attack on the Konoha supply convoy failed. Karaki's face was covered in blood, and a kunai was stuck in his shoulder. Hey? Didn't I tell you? If we encounter a transport convoy with a large number of guards, we just need to sabotage the water trucks, right? The guards on the other side aren't many, but the leader is formidable. Who is it? Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Tsunade. Are all 3 of them here? Yes. Then this isn't your fault. Go and get treatment and rest. Jing Hang waved his hand. It seems Danzo is really willing to go all out, even sacrificing such a strong fighting force to protect the supply lines. Elder Cho, Jonin Yakuza, I'll leave it to you to guard the camp. Maki will take 300 men with me to intercept Konoha's supply convoy. Jing Hang gave the order and began to put on his cloak. No, didn't I tell you? You are the wind shadow, you cannot be touched lightly. Cho stepped in to stop Jing Hang. Grandma Cho, don't worry. As long as we intercept this supply convoy, Konoha will surely be defeated. I won't go as the Sunin guards. Who among you can guarantee the mission's success? Don't worry, I'll just destroy their water wheels and leave without hesitation. Jing Hang smiled slightly, put on his windproof veil, and darted out of the tent. You really do get what you deserve for not heeding the advice of your elders. Maki and the others should have already left by now. Looking at the middle-aged man with a top knot in front of him, Jing Hang instantly knew that he had paid the price for his arrogance. Shadow imitation technique. You're from the Nara family, aren't you? Nara Shikigami. The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and persisted with the shadow imitation technique. After all, Jing Hang was quite strong. Looks like you've got me cornered. According to my calculations, there's a 70% chance you'll die here. Really? But your technique can't hold them for very long. A little while will be enough, Orochimaru said darkly, with Jiraiya standing beside him, hands in his pockets, grinning slyly, and Tsunade, whose expression remained blank. You lot? I might not be able to take your heads right now, but if I want to leave, none of you can stop me. Jing Hang commanded the iron sand tentacles to untie the scroll and release more iron sand. Don't speak too confidently. Jiraiya tossed a wooden kunao into the ground. As if triggering some mechanism, 5 magnificent, arched iron towers suddenly sprang up from the ground, centered on Jing Hang, and quickly closed in on him. At the same time, 5 leather ropes instantly sprang up using replicated pulley changes, binding Jing Hang tightly in no time. The released iron sand was also attracted to the towers. Phew! You're really strong. Naruto collapsed to the ground. His shadow imitation technique had reached its limit, and he was now pale and covered in sweat. Wow, where did you find so many magnets? That's amazing. Danzo must have scoured every magnet in the surrounding area to deal with me. Jing Hang feigned surprise as he watched the iron powder being sucked away, secretly observing the environment and thinking of a countermeasure. Not only that, but we've scoured the entire land of rain for magnets. We spent 2 whole months setting up this trap. Shouldn't you give us a shout-out? Jiraiya said casually. Upon hearing Jiraiya's words, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck Jing Hang's mind, and he instantly understood everything. Danzo Shimura. You're truly remarkable. You've gone to such lengths to catch a chicken, scattering half a bushel of grain. Chapter 11. From the moment Danzo led his army into Lake Moon, a trap was slowly being set for Jing Hang. From the initial fierce attack to the subsequent attack on the supply line, and then to the Sun personally guarding the supply route, everything was designed to trap Jing Hang and eliminate him. Your Danzo is truly ruthless, willing to sacrifice so many people to kill me. However, you would have lost the war anyway, even without me. Jing Hang coldly addressed the crowd. As a commander, disregarding logistics and flanks, he led a long-distance raid of over 2,200 li, launching a 3-day offensive regardless of casualties. This was undoubtedly a mad act. According to incomplete statistics, over 2,000 Konoha ninjas perished, all for one person. Truly, one general's success is built on the bones of 10,000. Only an ordinary fanatic could do such a thing. No, you're too modest. You're more powerful than you think. Danzo suddenly appeared. As a leader, you are qualified. No. You should be called outstanding. I have specifically studied your file and your actions since taking over. Your overall style is far-sighted, insightful, decisive, and efficient. During your time as Shaman's bodyguard, you gained the recognition of various clans and forces in Tsunagakuer, and you held extremely high prestige among frontline ninjas. Before the war began, you did your utmost to prevent it because you knew that major powers would inevitably intervene. After becoming Kazekage, you single-handedly defeated Hitaki Sakumo on the Western Front, and decisively withdrew from the Nightfall Sands on the Northern Front. Those without vision could not make such judgments. You have leadership, prestige, foresight, and methods. Your strength is also unfathomable. You are a far more difficult Kazekage to deal with than Shaman, and you are a man who can change the course of a battle. So, I'm sorry, although as a ninja I admire you, for the sake of Konoha's successors having one less powerful opponent in the future, you must die here today. As for sacrifice, what ninja doesn't sacrifice? The last sentence made all 3 ninjas turn their heads. How about I, representing Tsunagakuer, form an alliance with Konoha? Danzo paused, then a grin spread across his face. You've given me another reason to kill you. Damn, what's that? You're shameless. How can someone like you achieve anything great? What if you can't keep me here? Jing Hang rubbed his shoulder, which was almost completely bleeding from being tied up. Hurry up and do it. Naruto expression changed drastically. Before the words were even finished, the iron sand adsorbed on the curved iron tower changed, turning into black iron rings that floated up and down, forming a line around Jing Hang and pulsating rhythmically in waves. Some of the iron sand transformed into several strange patterns, and a crackling sound seemed to emanate from the air, like the static electricity of taking off a sweater in winter. Looking at Jing Hang again, all his hair inside the iron tower had exploded like a hedgehog, his eyes gleaming, making him look like a god. The iron ring moved even faster, and a huge black iron ball rose to the top of the iron tower. Sizzle! A bolt of lightning as thick as a bucket was released from the iron ball and struck Shikanobu squarely, instantly turning him into a charred corpse. Danzo, thank you for fulfilling my long-cherished wish. I've wanted to play with this for ages, but I just didn't have the money. Take a look, experience it for yourself, the Soviet-style magnetic explosion coil. With a roar from Jing Hang, countless arcs of electricity erupted from the black sphere. Like the roar of a monster. As a post-80s time traveler, Red Alert is undoubtedly an eternal childhood memory. As a staunch Soviet fan, I am naturally familiar with traditional defensive structures like the electromagnetic coil. Moreover, in a certain domestic pirated game called Red Dragon's Roar, this electromagnetic defense tower was designed with a different, bizarre shape. Building 2 or 3 of them would basically prevent enemy ground troops from getting through. And that shape is very similar to the 5 arc-shaped towers built with magnets that trapped Jing Hang. I vaguely remember seeing a video while scrolling through short videos. Scientists during the Brezhnev era in the Soviet Union actually researched a similar weapon, capable of launching high-voltage electromagnetic pulses of up to 700,000 volts in an electric test field. However, due to its limited attack range and the fact that it was indiscriminate in its deployment, its practical effectiveness was far inferior to conventional weapons like the T-72 main battle tank and the Su-27 fighter jet, so the project was halted. But Jing Hang happened to glance at the design drawings of this thing and felt that the complex circuit diagram had a strange sense of technology, so he downloaded the image and made it his laptop's desktop wallpaper. Since transmigrating, Jing Hang, who has mastered magnetic magic, has experimented with it from memory, but the old problems of indiscriminate attack, limited range, and exorbitant cost, the main reasons, persisted, so the plan was naturally abandoned. But today, Danzo has provided the funding to set up the platform, so why not give it a good push? You think you can attract all my iron filings with a few broken magnets? What a joke! Every single grain of my iron filings is a magnet. Playing with magnets? You haven't even graduated elementary school yet. Do you know Ørsted's law? Do you know Faraday's law? Have you mastered the slow motion of your left and right hands? You're overestimating yourself. Just as the electromagnetic coil was fully charged again and about to explode, Tsunade, her face bearing the 100 healing seal, charged forward despite the scorching lightning. Several bolts of lightning struck her, instantly charring her snow-white skin, only to heal it in a flash. With a powerful punch, she knocked down a towering magnet, extinguishing all the electricity in an instant. You're an amazing person, you could be Hokage. Jing Hang gave Tsunade a thumbs up. Jing Hang was suddenly enveloped in blue lightning armor, leaving behind an afterimage as he vanished before everyone's eyes. He can even use lightning release. Isn't that the lightning release armor from Kumagakure? Danzo muttered to himself. Back at the camp, Jing Hang was subjected to a hairdryer beating by the elders led by Cho. Only after repeatedly apologizing and promising never to do such dangerous things again were they let go. Before they could even have a sip of tea, Jing Hang dropped another bombshell. What? You want to form an alliance with Konoha? Yes, is that not allowed? Jing Hang smiled. Another uproar erupted at the scene. Some said, the second Kazekage, shaman, is still alive, and the third Kazekage's actions are chilling everyone's hearts. Others said, so much blood has been shed, we can't let this go so easily. Still others said, the situation is perfect now, we should muster our remaining strength and attack Konoha head-on. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation, as if they wanted to slam their fists on the table and smash their chairs. Only Elder Cho, who had been warned beforehand, slammed her hand on the table and angrily said, Lord Kazekage hasn't even finished speaking, and you're all chattering away. What kind of behavior is this? Everyone immediately fell silent. Jing Hang, still smiling, calmly said, "In this world, there are no eternal enemies, nor absolute friends. Only eternal interests." His words immediately silenced everyone like school children. Cho secretly gave him a thumbs up. Jing Hang was truly born to be a Kazekage, even his casual remarks were so stylish and sophisticated. "We've actually won this war, but what benefits have we gained? Eliminating a few more Konoha ninjas? These actions are meaningless to Tsunagakuer. They'll only deepen the hatred between the two sides, creating a stalemate that's detrimental to us." Jing Hang looked at everyone, relieved they were all listening attentively, and continued. "Konoha has a deep foundation, with roughly 3 times the number of ninjas as we do, and its resources are far superior to ours. Winning this war is already a huge advantage for us. Even if we lose, Konoha can fight another one. But us, I'll let you in on a private note, the daimyo of the Land of Wind has stopped funding our war effort. We have no money left to fight another war." Upon hearing this, everyone was immediately taken aback. Then, a commotion erupted. Furthermore, according to intelligence, Iwagakuer, Kirigakuer, and Kumagakuer are preparing for war, making a new Shinobi World War unavoidable. The noise grew louder, and Jing Hang patted the table to signal everyone to be quiet. "Our Tsunagakuer village is impoverished and weak, with limited strength. I believe that before a full-scale war breaks out, we should proactively withdraw from the war, recuperate, and use the war to develop our strength." Chapter 12. Looking at Jing Hang sitting in front of him with a smile on his face, Danzo's face was ashen, and he wished he could tear him to pieces. Yes, after Jing Hang dealt with the bigwigs of Tsunagakuer, he extended a peace olive branch to Konoha the very next day. Danzo, whose beast cage plan had failed and was struggling with the advance and retreat of his army, suddenly saw a glimmer of hope for him to back down gracefully. Overall, Danzo's performance this time was actually quite good. In the first half, he conquered Omegakure and intimidated Hanzo of the Salamander. In the second half, he severely injured Tsunagakuer and killed the second Kazekage, Shaman. On paper, if the war had ended now, it would have been a triumphant return. However, problems arose during injury time. Since Jing Hang took over the battle, the Konoha army had suffered repeated losses. Now, not only had the decapitation strike failed, but the army was also in a dilemma. If they continued to attack, their own supplies and weapons were insufficient, while the enemy was gaining momentum and their morale was high. It was basically impossible to take them down. Moreover, with the difficulty of resupplying, the army was in danger of being wiped out at any time. Retreat? Firstly, that would be tantamount to declaring the expedition a complete failure. Secondly, if the sand village followed and ambushed them along the way, the army would probably have to stop 9 out of 10 times before reaching the night howling sands. However, if they accept the alliance with Tsunagakuer at this time, firstly, it would ensure the safe withdrawal of the army, allowing them to completely extricate themselves from this quagmire of war. Secondly, it would secure the fruits of victory for the Land of Rain, deterring the covetousness of Iwagakuer, and thirdly, it would be easier to explain back home, allowing him to confidently assert himself before the Third Hokage and the elders. Look how awesome this guy is! He defeated 2 ninja villages, one of which is one of the 5 great hidden villages. He even took down a Kazekage. This is a resounding victory no matter where you look at it. The Konoha leadership will certainly accept a peace treaty, it will save face for all parties involved. Danzo can still return to Konoha as the conqueror and victor, and will undoubtedly gain a higher position among the leadership. As for the casualties and losses in this battle, well, war always results in death. Ninjas, after all, are bound to suffer. However, the only thing that made Danzo feel uncomfortable was this guy in front of him. Inheriting the legacy of his predecessors, he has traversed north and south, bravely overcoming powerful enemies in dire straits and turning the tide when all seems lost. This guy will undoubtedly gain extremely high prestige in Tsunagakuer, and his power in the village will soon be highly unified. Now, riding the wave of his great victory, he seeks peace. Who knows what harsh conditions he will propose? Just as Danzo was still calculating, Jing Hang spoke up, "Senior Danzo, there are only the two of us here, and we are both honest people. We won't hide anything from the gong beater or the magician. Let's skip the roundabout official jargon and platitudes. Here are the conditions, take a look." He then handed over a piece of paper. Danzo took a look and was surprised to find that the conditions inside were not harsh at all. In fact, Konoha even had a slight advantage. First, the Sand Village and Konoha cease hostilities, and both sides ninja retreat to the border between the Land of Wind and the Land of Fire. Both sides unconditionally release prisoners. Second, Tsunagakuer will consider the Land of Rain as part of Konoha's sphere of influence and will completely withdraw from territorial disputes among the northern states of the Land of Wind. Third, Tsunagakuer and Konoha shall establish an alliance, and both sides shall maintain consistency in all diplomatic, military, and commercial actions. Fourth, strengthen bilateral economic cooperation and cultural exchanges, and reduce taxes on caravans traveling between the two sides. 5. The treaty wasn't long, but Danzo examined it carefully, checking it repeatedly. Then, he looked at Jing Hang with suspicion, a question arising in his mind: what was this guy after? Of course, this is only a preliminary agreement. The formal alliance will be signed personally in Konoha after I complete the Kazekage succession ceremony. Are you going to Konoha? Yes, it's to show sincerity. I'll send a diplomatic note to Konoha as soon as the succession ceremony is over. How many leaders are truly holed up in their own country every day? Danzo remained doubtful. If it were him, he would never easily sue for peace when he had such a significant advantage. There must be a conspiracy involved. There's no conspiracy involved, Jing Hang said, seemingly seeing through Danzo's thoughts. Konoha is strong, Tsunagakuer is weak. Konoha is rich, Tsunagakuer is poor. Local victories cannot change the overall decline. Your Konoha lost a large army, but you can send another large army. But we Tsunagakuer do not have that many ninjas to waste. Before we become mortal enemies, let's turn hostility into friendship. After I leave, you can withdraw your troops. Don't worry, we definitely won't follow. You can ask around. I have an excellent reputation. At this point, Jing Hang's smile took on a slightly lewd smirk. Danzo eventually compromised and issued the order to withdraw his troops that very night. The ninjas on both sides were overjoyed. The war, which had lasted for nearly half a year, had finally come to an end. The Sand Village even kindly sent several carts of water and food. We can't send all the ninja back to the village at once. At least a third of our forces must remain at Lake Moon. This is partly for reconnaissance, and partly because I've decided to develop Lake Moon into a logistical base for Tsunagakuer. Lord Kazekage is indeed very thoughtful. Yes. Yes, we should keep something in reserve. Looking at the crowd below, who were discussing animatedly, Jing Hang nodded to himself. After successfully ending this war, he, as the Third Kazekage, had performed admirably, being tough when necessary and flexible when appropriate. It could be said that he had basically secured his position. Now that the war is over, the remaining ninjas will exist as a production and construction corps. Karaki, you'll have to work hard and take on the role of commander of this corps. Lead the brothers stationed here to reclaim wasteland, plant trees, and develop production. I'll discuss the specific measures and methods with you later. You don't need to look so glum. The ninja in charge of this garrison rotates every 4 months. You won't be stuck here forever. Everyone burst into laughter. Yes, Lord Kazekage, Karaki replied. Elder Cho, go and arrange the evacuation of troops. Elder Yuzusa, go and inform the daimyo of the Land of Wind about the war situation, and also inform him to attend my Kazekage succession ceremony. After all the arrangements were made, everything was temporarily put on hold. Jing Hang leaned back in his chair, his body seemingly collapsing. It's finally over. You guys go fight the battles, we Sand Village residents need to rest and recuperate. So it seems this little guy named Jing Hang is quite capable. In an unnamed underground cave, a hunched figure was half hidden in the shadows, his voice sounding old and weak. Indeed, both battles were fought brilliantly, replied a monster with only one black face. Well, that's enough about the Land of Wind. But this little guy is still worth keeping an eye on. What's the situation with the Kazekage? The Kazekage has made preparations for war. Now that you're all ready, cough. Cough, don't just sit around. Go and make the arrangements. Cough. Cough. The sound of an old man's weak cough came from the huge, hollow cavern. Looking at the small bottle in his hand, Danzo's thoughts were complicated. Inside the bottle was none other than a bright red Sharingan. He really is a character, Danzo couldn't help but remark, the image of Jing Hang's face during negotiations flashing through his mind. I hope to establish a friendly personal friendship with you. Personal friendship. I believe that after Danzo Senpai returns, his words will carry weight with the higher UPS in Konoha. I hope that you can speak on our behalf at some point. You underestimate me. I would never betray Konoha's interests. Rest assured, no one will ask you to betray Konoha's interests. After the alliance is signed, we are allies, and Konoha's interests are naturally aligned with Tsunagaku's. And you? Don't worry, I won't put you in a difficult position. I've said I only need your friendship. Please accept this as a token of my sincerity. After saying that, Jing Hang took out a small bottle. When Danzo saw what was in the bottle, he was immediately captivated. Everyone knew what it meant. Is this a mirror? Yes. What about the other one? It broke by accident. You. Danzo glared angrily at Jing Hang, who maintained a smiling face. After a long while, Danzo calmed down, put the small bottle into his sleeve, and extended his hand to Jing Hang. All right, Lord Kazekage, you've gained my friendship. Chapter 13. Here, with a humble and sincere heart, I solemnly swear that I will dedicate my life to inheriting the arduous and extraordinary spirit of my predecessors and to carrying forward the foundation laid by their pioneering efforts. May gods and men bear witness to my words. Jing Hang pricked his finger and smeared the blood on his lips. Then, in the Hall of the Wind Shadow, witnessed by the two giant stone sculptures of the first-generation Retsudo and the second-generation Shaman, as well as numerous representatives and elders of the Sand Village clans, Jing Hang bowed to the daimyo of the